Village of Wolverine Lake meeting of January 9th, 2019 to order. Please stand for the pledge of the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Scott. York.
Here.
Sinkwitz.
Yes.
Pedro.
Here.
Dumont.
Here.
Stuff.
Here.
Allen.
Here.
Mr. President, before you start, I would just like to make a quick comment. Today is National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day, and I think everybody can appreciate what our police department has done and the work that the chief has done, and all law enforcement throughout America. So congratulations to all those people.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to correspondence. I don't believe we have any.
Do we adjourn the special meeting?
Yes, we do.
Okay, good.
You're upstairs. I don't believe we have any additions to business.
None came across my radar screen, no.
So I guess we're on the first call of public. Anybody in the public would like to speak on agenda items only? Seeing there's not much public here, I guess we'll bypass the first call of public and move on to approval of consent agenda.
Make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Support.
There was a motion by Duff, second by Malik.
I do have a question there.
Yep.
I see we have no, under number 9, no enforcement report. Is that that he didn't work, or code enforcement officer?
If you'd like, I can answer that. He actually had to have back surgery. He's been off for a while. He'll be back, I believe, soon. I just don't know exactly when.
Okay.
Yeah, he has been off.
No problem. I just,
Holidays, the way it fell too was through the holidays. He wanted to get it done during the holidays. So he'll be off for a little bit, but we're picking up some of the slack too.
okay, I just seen it missing, and that was my question. Thank you. Fine.
Okay, so we had a motion. Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
York.
Yes.
Sinkwitz.
Yes.
Pedro.
Yes.
Dumont.
Yes.
Stuff.
Yes.
Allen.
Yes.
Mr. President, if I can just go back on the enforcement officer, did we ever get, and I know I had talked with Nathan quite heavily about it, any kind of a jacket or a coat that he wears that identify who he is when he walks up to a porch?
I don't believe we have.
Yeah. No, but
Have,
isn't he issued a badge like
That's
when
what I
I
was
was on
gonna say, we had-
zoning?
ID's
Yeah,
got
I
to
have
ID.
an identification tag.
That he wears?
Yeah.
Okay. Because we had talked about a coat, and if he's walking around a house or something like that, that, just if it was said Wolverine Lake, something, but it seemed to be a good idea, but I
Well,
don't know.
really, now that you brought it up, it really would be a great idea, because
You don't see that.
normally, like when we were on zoning, where I was, and you had a little badge hung around your neck. That isn't saying a lot. I mean, those people knew that you were gonna come around. But he's going, to a door that
Not
they might
something-
have no reason to know he's coming. Whether it be a vest, maybe, that, if he was to leave,
You
can
know,
be passed on, or
Bright orange, green, yellow, blue.
it says
just
Wolverine Lake Enforcement or something. John, what is your?
I'm sure we could come up with something, ordinance enforcement, something along that line.
Yeah, I'd be more comfortable with that.
We actually just got some things made for the police department. We have a whole book. We could have something made up for him.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Would we need a motion of some sort to have that done?
I think it could fall under the administrator's
Purview.
review right now.
Okay.
Wouldn't be a huge expense.
Okay. All on that topic?
That's it.
Okay. Like I said, we have no public hearings.
Wait a minute, don't we need to approve that? Did we all?
We did.
We
Oh.
already did.
We already had a roll call vote.
Okay.
Okay,
Missed
moving on to
it. Went right by
business.
me.
Business, item A, recommendation from the Water Management Board. And that was regarding our, lake management consultant.
Right.
And, I'm sure.
I have one question. Is this contract something that can be terminated by by the village?
Yeah, there's an out clause. I don't know what it is offhand.
Okay. Because I know that one time, a couple years back, that was on the agenda with the water board, and it didn't happen. And that's all, I was just curious. I mean, we're not locked into a contract come hell or high water.
No, I don't
Okay.
think so.
All right.
I'll find it and
Do
I
you know
will
about
report it to all of
In
you.
fact, there has been, there was some discussion regarding that with last go-around on contract negotiations with them,
Okay.
so.
That $16,000, how does that compare to what we had the last time
I
around?
think it was like 15 last time,
Yeah.
wasn't it? It's pretty comparable. It did go up a little bit,
Oh, yeah, that's,
and there was a couple bids received, and they were both very close,
Yeah,
from what I understand, so.
that's what it said in the material.
I'll make the motion to hire Progressive A for 2019 at $16,000 and an hourly rate of $85 per hour for items not covered inside the contract.
for 19 and 20?
Correct, 19 and 20.
There was a motion by Dumont, second by Yorkie. Any other discussion? And I know that was part of the discussion too, is there was some other things that had to be added to, or there was some other things that he had to do this last year regarding the aeration and stuff that was required, and so that's why they ended up adding the $85 an hour in for basically the special services, so. And then I guess roll call vote?
Sinkowitz.
Yes.
Medrow.
Yes.
Dumont.
Yes.
Duff.
Yes.
Mallon.
Yes.
York.
Yes.
Moving on to planning. Recommendation to approve the text amendment for repealing and replacing section 127008 for fences, arbors, and trellises. And we had a couple, there was I believe a ZBA, couple ZBA cases came up regarding fences and
Yes.
landscape, or as far as the
Landscape fences.
railings,
Fence.
and railings and such. So in digging into that, we found that the fence ordinance, it's been on the books for quite a while, didn't refer to anything as far as, didn't have any definitions regarding trellises, and the definitions portion is the other side, but we did change some items minimally in that, so.
Yeah, it's a person that has read the previous one, it's very clear now what.
Right.
Yeah, that was
We
part of
need to
the-
clarify
the
some things.
Bummer for me is the side yard went from 60 to 48, so I wish I'd have got my fence up last year.
So you can introduce 110 and 111 together.
Okay,
They run hand in hand. 111 is simply the definitions for 110.
mm-hmm,
I have a question on that, on this page here. Okay, when it says, I don't know what, the page isn't marked, but anyway, it's the one with A, B, C, D and all
Yeah.
that stuff. Down here, it says, D, about landscape fences, a minimum of, number one, says fences and landscape fences located in a required or unrequired front yard shall not exceed 30 inches in height.
Right.
Now, that would mean that if the plant grows, you got to cut it back to 30 inches.
In the front yard.
Yeah, lakeside,
Front yard, yes.
right, unrequired front, that, they're referring to lakefront.
mm-hmm. So if you had a hedgerow,
So if you had a hedgerow,
It's
Front yard is street.
front
it's
yard.
Right,
street,
that's what I thought.
street side, that's right.
It's
not-
front yard.
Lakefront would be considered lakefront
Yeah.
yard.
There's no fences in Lakefront.
Right.
There are none at all.
That's correct.
correct?
Yep.
Okay, that's what I want.
And if
But
you're-
again, the same thing is, it's the the owner's responsibility to maintain. If
Mhm.
it's supposed to be 3 feet, 30 inches, then
30
you
inches,
cut it back to
So
30.
number 4 covers what you were concerned about, Ed. No fence, landscape fence shall be permitted or required on required
Yeah,
lakefront yards
except for
except
the
for
pool.
pools. Yep.
All
all right, now, somebody on a corner has two fronts, okay?
Mm-hmm.
What happens if you have existing that is over 30 inches at this time?
well, it has to be cut to 30 inches, because it's just gonna continue to grow, so it's just gonna be
So
a
I gotta go and
violation.
cut all my bushes down to 30 inches.
30 inches.
That's
really-
been in existence for a while, though.
No,
Huh? This ordinance has, yeah.
not at 30 inches.
Sure has.
Yeah, I didn't change, that part
That was not changed.
No.
Shouldn't have said anything, Bob.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's just, you know.
No, it's been like that for some time.
Yeah,
I mean, probably-
that wasn't
probably
part of
8,
the
10 years.
amendment, right?
You know, I've had hedges that were 5 foot tall right along the side of my deck. Boy, oh boy, I guess I should be bitching at the code enforcement officer. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that was part of
It's been quite a while.
it. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, with that, do I hear a motion to introduce 110 and 111?
So moved.
Second. Motion by Sinkwitz, second by Dumont. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Opposed.
Okay, Malik's opposed. That takes care of planning. Okay, then next one is item C, which was
So this is to adopt,
adopt. Last month, we introduced it.
right, and this is the codification ordinance, which you
Correct.
do every year. It just rolls the ordinances that you've adopted in the last year into your code.
Right.
I'll make that motion that we approve the editing and inclusion of certain ordinances as part of our codified ordinance of the Village of Wolverine Lake.
Second.
Ooh, that was a tie. Motion by Sinkwitz, give it to Duff. Second by Duff. To adopt ordinance 139A-5, the codification. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And now we get to introduce.
Nope, this is an adoption
This is
as
adoption.
well. You, because you introduced this at your last meeting.
Okay.
All the communities are doing this right now, so I'm trying to track who's introducing and adopting. You're adopting this. This is your ordinance to prohibit, to opt out of
Opt out of
the
the
recreational marijuana facilities that was now allowed under the new law. So this is your opt-out ordinance.
Right.
You'd be motioning to adopt.
Adopt this
The
ordinance.
opt-out ordinance.
Right.
I'll make a motion that we adopt ordinance 159.
Second.
Motion by York, second by Duff. To adopt ordinance 159 for recreational marijuana opt-out. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now, this one's, moving on to the WOTA discussion. Okay, this is the transportation.
Confusing.
Yeah, boy. All right, so just in case there wasn't enough documents, they sent me a bunch more today.
Oh, great. The WOTA is West Oakland Transportation Authority.
Okay. Okay, so. Representatives from Highland Township, Milford Township, Waterford Township, White Lake Township, Commerce Township, the City of Walled Lake, the Village of Milford, and your village, have been meeting and talking for, I don't know, 5 or 6 months now about this, West Oakland Transportation Authority. When Nathan first asked me, the attorneys for these communities were getting together because they were getting to the point in the discussion of the administrative officials of crafting this interlocal agreement. So they wanted all the attorneys to get together to write the interlocal agreement because they're just gonna write it and rewrite it again anyways. So the attorneys have met twice now and come up with what is this proposed interlocal agreement, which if you were wanting to participate in this program, I feel is a good agreement. It's fair. The terms have really been hashed out in word-by-word detail. Now, the question is for you, though, do you want to participate in this program? Currently, you have, what was your rider number?
47.
Yeah, the White Lake White Lake Township handles your persons over 65 and disabled persons, handles transportation services for them. Their ridership data indicates that you have 40 approximately residents that are registered with their program. WODA, this group, did some projections with the numbers and based on your population and came up with these percentages to try and come up with a formula of cost sharing for what their proposed budget is. You are eligible for some transportation grants. The money that you receive for from
CDBG?
SMART, you currently use for Parks and Rec excursions, and you don't match for the CDGB or the Oakland County, I guess, transportation funds that you could match for, which is another $4,400 that could go towards transportation services. So WODA is looking at all of the grants that are eligible, that you are eligible for, that you would be potentially able to get in calculating your contribution. Now, what wasn't a part of the discussion, the negotiations with the attorneys, talking about the interlocal agreement was, I'm not sure the history of why Wolverine Lake set up, as a village of commerce, set up with White Lake, and how that is being taken care of financially. Because right now, you're not participating, you're not paying for any transportation services, but you have 40 residents who are at least registered in a program. Commerce Township, and this is a question that really needs to be addressed administratively with Commerce Township and Wolverine Lake, is, are you gonna take care of our residents? Are you gonna take care of the village residents when you move to WODA? What's gonna happen? White Lake is no longer gonna service them. How does White Lake financially handle your riders when you're not contributing to that program? So there's a lot of financial questions and administrative questions that need to go on between the communities. I believe Commerce and Wolverine Lake, to try and identify why are you not paying anything for these 40 riders? Who is? Someone is. There's got to be money coming from somewhere to cover these riders. Now there's a $2 donation request per rider. It's not forced to pay that. People do contribute toward their cost of their transportation, but the communities also contribute, except you're not. So, and as far as we can, from Mike's research, haven't. So, how did that come to be? See, I don't know the history of that, and
We're getting something for nothing.
well, and so now, the question is with Commerce Township, you're gonna take our 40 riders from the village, if we actually have 40 riders? Because they're asking you now to be a part of WODA for a financial contribution. And so your financial contribution is proposed for 2019 and 2020 to be $4,200 per year, which you theoretically could have covered through your grant money. But by 2021, WODA is projecting an $18,000 contribution, and I believe that's based on their projections for all of the eligible funding that you have available to you.
One other thing I noticed, if you turn to page 10 and 11, and it tells you the proposed and current and the number of vehicles. And I noticed Waterford, and then gets 3 vehicles assigned to that area. But White Lake, Wolverine Lake, and Commerce, which is almost twice the size, gets only 2. See? Number of vehicles used in that area. So you look at this and this, if anything, I would have thought it would have been the flip side.
So the way that it's structured now is it's different transportation programs. For instance, like White Lake has its own transportation program that services Commerce and Wolverine and White Lake. Highland has a transportation program, which I believe that Highland has now taken over for Walled Lake. And they also take some of Milford riders through the Highland program. All of those different programs have smart vehicles in their fleet. They're actually vehicles that are not owned by that program, they're for the purpose of that transportation. So if all these communities come together and all these transportation programs form one regional authority, all those vehicles collectively go to WODA. They all become WODA vehicles. So they're not designated per Commerce Township. They're all, where needed, they go. And there's a total
Well,
of,
according to this document, it tells you how many vehicles they're gonna have in each area.
yeah, this was the business plan that they did in 2018 when they were starting to like decide how we want to set this up, and when they were preliminarily talking about,
You know-
okay, well, Commerce is giving us 2 vehicles, so we have to make sure they get 2 vehicles designated to them. But the way that it would work now is it's just a pool of vehicles. And they're gonna, get dispatched and go where they need to go. Now, Commerce may get 2 vehicles because of their population or their ridership numbers. It's just gonna be.
But you're saying in the future, this is gonna be quite costly.
Well, their base, this amount that they have for 2021 for you is $18,000. So that is
Our grant money's not gonna
assuming
go
that
up
you
that.
get grant money, and they're projecting that you can get more grant money than even the SMART funds and the Oakland County Transportation Funds. That's really a number that you're gonna get close to in grant money.
Yeah, I personally don't know enough about the current system to know if it's broken and needs to be fixed.
So what is going to happen, though, is Commerce Township and White Lake Township are both considering, and very seriously considering, just from the discussions that I participating in WODA. So the question that needs to be asked to them is, what about our 40 people? You're taking care of them now, so what about our 40 people when you're no longer gonna be a commerce program going through White Lake? Is the only option for your riders participation on your own and your own financial contribution? That would be administratively what should be addressed.
Well, I guess the other question is that public service included in our commerce taxes?
No,
It's not.
they do not.
It's separate funding?
Yeah, they don't, they get grant money, they probably get SMART money, they get Oakland County money, there's all kinds of ways to get money for transportation, but they are not taxing for transportation services. That's correct, right, Mike, that Commerce wasn't collecting a millage?
Not per se, but they might have it included in some sort of line item that, I don't think, for example, that under the current situation, our ridership, all we know is how many people are registered. They don't keep track of ridership in terms of, if it's a Wolverine Lake person or not. So I've got a lot of questions about this, both from the financial side of it. At $18,000, if you're saying it's going to be completely covered by grants or something like that, that's wonderful. If not, that's a lot of money per 40 riders over the course of the year, $300 and some plus. Other things have come into play now. There's such things as, Lyft and Uber and so forth. And the Plant Moran study we saw, or that we looked at, is 10 years old now. None of those things were even extant at that time. So I would need to be more familiar to be able to get back to the village council here with some of the ramifications of the operation per se, and get a lot more questions answered than before it's wonderful that we're getting information about this and we see where we're going. And of course, it expands the field for the ridership. They're going to be able to go a lot more places than they can now. It's currently restricted to just the areas, I think, White Lake, and Commerce, but now this expands that, and that's a good thing. But what are we paying for? Is it worth it? Are the grants there? That's the part I have to.
And so, like, when I first started participating in the discussions, the townships were kind of representing the villages, and the villages didn't have any vote on the WODA board, and the townships. But then there was the township, for instance, Milford Township and the Village of Milford. WODA, when they were initially talking about all of this at the beginning stages, considered them together, but Milford Township said no. The Village of Milford is its own entity, and, you know, we're not funding each other. Now, you may have a different situation here with Commerce because your population is so much smaller and your ridership is so much less. And I don't know the history of the setup for your transportation program.
I thought I saw a millage, or a number for Milford Village of like $80,000 in this scenario, where ours goes to 18 in 3
Right.
years.
They're, in the Milfords, the village is actually more ridership than the township. So their contribution into WODA is actually greater.
Got it.
Which is why Milford Township was like, no, you know, you have to pay 67 and we have to pay 43, so how is that fair? So,
Well, you said
Right
Commerce
now-
is a driver in this, so if I got with Mr. Scott
yeah.
and discussed the ins and outs and what he's thinking and so forth,
Right.
maybe it's all a moot point. It's like, yeah, your grandfathered or your situation
Is
will
included
relate.
or taken care of.
That's what my suggestion would be for the administrative heads to kind of have a discussion about all of this.
Yeah, bring us more information.
And there may be more options. Milford Township and the Village of Milford used to participate in the Highland Transportation Program, and there was a falling out among all of these communities. And Milford Township and the Village of Milford now use a private entity called the People's Express. So because the Highland Transportation Program is still transporting a lot of Milford riders, which is another story, the Milfords don't pay People's Express very much money every month for the few number of riders that they have, and that it kind of looks like you guys a little bit, the number of riders that they're doing, and it's not a great cost every month. So that could be something that you could explore as well if Commerce is telling you, you're out, you're on your own now. I don't know what they're saying, so. There's a lot of different options and questions and scenarios. I just kind of wanted to catch all of you up, especially, you know, with Nathan leaving and all of that had just started, really, so. It's a lot of information, but.
Just a question would be, so if I go down that road where I make the contact with Commerce, I mean, what's the deadline, what's the time frame here? When are they looking to, either you're in the authority or you're not in it?
They wanted all of the communities to present to their governing bodies January, February at the latest to try and get it moving along, because they're wanting to purchase more vehicles for the fleet, and then they have some grant deadlines, but there is no set deadline. So, you know, if I went back to them, and not that you're not significant community, but your percentage is so low and your ridership numbers are so low that, you know, I don't think you're holding up anyone by taking your time and doing a little more research.
Well, I guess at this point, we just need to figure out where we're at with Commerce.
Yeah, I mean,
Find out if we're in or out, or they're including us or not.
I think that's the way to go. Like I say, I'm almost positive I was told that they don't identify riders, in our case, by Commerce or Wolverine Lake resident. If that's true, I don't know where the projections are coming from, and, you know, that may all be a wild guess or something. So let me get with Commerce, let me see if I can, the point person who knows the budget numbers and all the rest of that is a lady named, is it Vernier, or that would be?
Vernier, yeah.
Would that be who I talked to?
Kim, yes.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good idea.
Okay, so at this point, we really need to take no action.
No, you don't need to take any action, it's just catching you guys up and letting you
We
know
don't need a
what's going
motion to
Towards
take
Commerce.
action, no action, right? Good.
Okay, thank you so much for putting all this stuff in front of us, huh? Moving on to item F. We're doing that right?
Yeah.
Item F was dissolution of the Lake Improvement Board. And Ed, maybe you might be able to, do you remember the Lake Improvement Board with that?
I got a little bit of info,
Okay.
Mr. President.
Huh?
All right.
First of all, this comes out of the blue. This is a letter from an attorney for the Water Resource Commissioner. I called him the day we received it. I go, what's this all about? It sounded very much like a housekeeping chore. This is a board that originally convened in what did we find, Tab? Well, no,
79.
it was over
76 or
with in
79 or
70.
something.
It was over with in 84. Its first meeting took place in 1979, at which time, Brian asked me to try and find some history today, which we did. Thank you, Tab. We had Mr. McClellan, who I think is the village president at that time, along with a county commissioner, along with a representative of the DNR and a representative from the drain commissioner's office. So it was a committee of 4. They met, we have minutes and so forth, records of their meeting, kind of on a sporadic basis, certainly not as regular as our current water board, and had their last meeting in 1984, at which time there were actually 2 village representatives. I don't see a representative from DNR anymore, so the constitution of that committee changed over that period. We also discovered today we can't find minutes, and it looks very much that like our current water board convened for the first time in 1992. You see all the records pointing to, this is our first meeting, here's the roll call, here's the election of officers, their terms, and all the rest of that. So as what happened maybe between 1984 and 1992 as far as governance of the lake is unknown to us at this point, but we didn't dig super deep, but that's what we seem to have come up with. And I didn't mean to interrupt you, Mr. President, but, maybe Mr. Sinkwitz does remember some of the history there, given that I've given a few dates and.
I think I can help you guys.
Oh,
actually.
good.
Go ahead, I remember some of the transactions.
We
but-
just did quite a bit of research on trying, when we did a memo, and it went to the administrator, and I think the Water Management Board has actually seen it, because John Scott's talked to me about it a little bit, about the history of lake management and whose responsibility is. I don't know if you remember last month, he was saying, he wanted the homeowners association maybe get a little
Well,
training
sure,
session
the
about
shoreline,
stuff. Yeah.
shoreline,
So we looked into all of this, and that board came up, what did they call it?
Lake Improvement Board.
Lake
Exactly,
Improvement.
yeah, Lake Improvement Board. So it was formed in 1979. There's a special statute in the state of Michigan that allows you to form these lake boards to set up special assessment districts. And at the time, you were setting up a special assessment district to fund and construct a drawdown device for the lake. That was formed, the district was formed in 1980, and you collected $181,000 from that assessment, and you completed the drawdown structure. So the reason why the board discontinued was because it
Structure was
ran
done.
its purpose. It had collected the SAD and the structure was built.
Yeah.
The Water Management Board is not statutory in the sense that the Lake Board is. So there are 2 different types of boards. Your
Well,
Water Management Board
See,
is.
Ed, I was here then too. That's when we had the big drawdown.
Yeah, that was
With
the
the
year
stump
that
removal.
lowered the lake 5 feet.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Then we
and that
went
was-
out and we had, actually, what we did was, the drawdown device that was built into the dam had a gate,
Right.
never been touched in years, and it was rusted, locked shut, couldn't get, it was underwater, it was so narrow, nobody could go down there and fix it. So what we decided to do, because they could get the lake drawn down as far as the dam would go, but that's only a couple feet. So I showed them how to siphon the water out of the lake. And we had some big pipes and siphoned the water over the dam. So anyway, that worked out fine. And then we went and got groups of guys, and I had an old set of skis that I screwed some boots to, and I slush out to a stump, and I throw a hook on it with a rope, and then 15 or 20 guys, pull it in, pull me in, then we go to the next one.
Didn't they
And I
pull
think
out like 700 stumps?
700 and some stumps.
Yeah, 'cause
In
I
fact,
worked
for
on the
anybody
far west
that-
end.
Anybody that hasn't lived here before, this area here, like this, was all marked off with buoys. You couldn't go in there with a boat. And you couldn't believe how many propeller blades we found in the stumps.
Well, on the
But anyway,
western,
that's
on the
what was
western part
achieved.
of the lake where the little island is before Benstein,
Yeah.
you could not go beyond Spring Lake Heights Beach to the west at all.
Yeah.
Because the stumps, I had 5 propellers for it.
So I know, that I remember attending one meeting, and I don't know where, I can't remember where it was at, but we were discussing how we were gonna do it and how we'd replenish the lake. And somebody said that between normal snowfall and the spring and everything, that would replenish, and that's how we got,
Well, then we got the permit to add the additional well at that time.
I don't know if it was the
Yeah.
same time or
Well,
not.
it was like right after that
Yeah,
because
and
the
then
lake.
Mike, then I put in a monitoring well, and then Mike
Right.
did a drawdown test to see how much the, because as you're sucking the water out,
Yep.
it's pulling away from the wellhead.
So it would be appropriate for you to just dissolve.
I'll
It's
go.
ironic that
we need
the
somebody to go,
Drain
I'll go.
Commission is asking to dismantle this board after, literally, we just looked at all of this. I was
34
looking
years.
at records, minutes from the 70s too.
Well, we need a
Really to
motion
bring-
to
I'm
dissolve
sorry,
it.
About, Mr. President, if I could. It's not, you're not making a motion to dissolve it here. You're making, you want to appoint 2 people so that they can sit in on another meeting whose sole purpose is going to be to dissolve
Oh, okay.
itself. So
That's what they're asking.
you could do it administratively, Tabitha and I could go, if you guys, the 2 of you want to go just for yucks. So
Do we need 2 to go?
It's a house,
We
yeah.
need 2 people. to
It's a
sit on
housekeeping
it.
chore. 2 people
Right.
from Wolverine Lake have to participate
Because
in
the
that
Lake
decision.
Board statutorily is required to have 5 members. It's required to have Oakland County Water Resource Person, 2 representatives of the local government, a drain commissioner.
And an Oakland County Commissioner.
Yeah.
Is this
and
a trip?
lakefront
Is this a
property
trip
owner.
to the
Maybe
UP?
that was you.
Trip to where?
To the UP?
I think it's probably up to Pontiac.
So,
Yeah.
Well, if Mike wants to go,
so I
I'll go.
make a motion to have Mike and Tabitha go to that and represent the village.
All right, all I would need to do is make Mr. Bosch, give him some dates and so forth, and we'll do it, and we'll report back when it's done.
You really want to go, Ed?
Pardon?
I said, you really want to go?
If you got somebody else that wants to go, I don't care.
You and I could go, Tab could,
Makes no difference to me.
I'll even drive.
Yeah, I was originally in on it, I'll go.
Right.
If somebody else wants to go, don't let me
I
hold you
take that
back.
motion back.
So,
Was
the
never voted on.
administrator, acting administrator, me, and Mr. Sinkowitz.
There you go.
I'll second that motion,
Who made that motion?
or make the motion. It doesn't
I
matter.
did. No, go ahead.
Bob, you want to make it?
No, he's gonna make it. I'm gonna second.
All right, there you go.
Motion by Duff, second by Malik to appoint acting administrator conduct and Councilman Mr. Sinkowitz to the Lake Improvement Board. Any discussion? All in favor?
Is there any other information we want to bring to those people?
Oh, by the way, you owe 30 grand.
Right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we are hour and 22 minutes ahead of our second call to the public.
And we're not gonna wait.
We still have one person in the public that says he doesn't need to speak on this, so at that point, I guess we don't have to open to the second call. Therefore, we'll move on to set topics for the January 23rd work session. And that's going to be administrative review, interviews. And I believe that we are going to set that up for 5 PM
Yes,
Mhm.
I'll make that motion.
from a
Second
7
that.
o'clock start normally. And I don't believe there's anything else we need to discuss that evening, so.
Well, again, like I had mentioned upstairs, that potential I might not be there. I don't know
Mhm.
for sure.
We don't have to identify the candidates.
Well, we hope you are.
I hope so
I mean,
too.
the numbers.
It's,
We did that at
Oh, you
your
did, okay.
other.
So, that being the case, we'll see everybody on the 23rd. Next item is interim administrator contracts.
No, we've done that.
Yeah, we did
Uh,
that.
That's it.
Yep, that's
Moot
a
point.
moot point, because we don't need to go into closed session for any reason tonight. So we have pending business, which is, I don't believe we have anything pending.
No, sir.
Update from Chief Ellsworth.
As you can see, you got my year-end report. It was
fairly lengthy. I'm sorry about that, but there's a lot of information in there. I didn't hear from anybody, so I'm assuming you all read it from front to back and don't have any questions, so.
A lot of activity.
We were very active. We actually were up quite a bit in our numbers, about 20% more than usual as far as our activity, but our crime rates still remain very low, so I'm very happy with that, and we have a very, very good team right now. I'm very, very excited going into 2019, although I do know that I will be losing one of my officers this year, mid-July probably, and so we're going to have to start working on replacement, getting some ideas and some applications and doing interviews, et cetera, so. But it goes back to, we don't hire good cops, we hire good people and make them good cops, so that's our philosophy, and I think we're doing pretty good at that right now. Other than that, if you have any questions on those, feel free to give me a call, and I'll be more than happy to answer.
Great, thank you. Mike?
Only, Mr. President, that the nominations for Citizen of the Year closed this afternoon at 5 p.m. There were 4 names proffered. The typical procedure is for that to be referred to the Administrative Committee, and in its newly constituted form, we'll have to come up with a prospective meeting date, and that would be an order of business. It's not, there's no time constraints on it. That would just be in typical fashion, we would act on it in late January, probably not in this case, early February would be fine. So my role in this at the moment then is to see if the admin committee can meet this week, because Mr. Scott is on it, along with Mr. Nedrow and Mr. Sinkowitz. And if that's the case, great. If not, we'll have to come up with an alternative meeting time and date.
Are we gonna wait try to get John involved in this?
Yeah, that was
He's
my.
gonna try to get a hold of John.
Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't hear that part, I'm
Yep.
sorry.
Okay, is that the administrator's report? or was
That's
that
all
the
I got,
treasurer's
Mr.
report?
President.
Okay. Council comments, let's go to Malik.
Well, let's say that 2018 is history. Hope 2019 is good for everyone here involved and for our community.
Ditto.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Same here.
Motion to adjourn?
That's a motion by Duff, second by,
What's that?
motion to adjourn.
Oh,
Second.
Second by Mr. York. Discussion, all in favor?
aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries.
This is a record.